Sexton's going to be 38. Johnny Sexton's going to be 38 at the next World Cup. I've spoken not poorly about him. I've given my opinion. You've got the World Player of the Year. You've got one of the best 10s to have ever played the game, who's now 37. You know, some games he limps out of, you know, the injuries that come with it. Still a fantastic player, don't get me wrong. My point being, where's the evolution for 10 at Ireland? You know, is it Ross, Harry Byrne? Billy Burns has come in and probably not performed to the standard that he would have wanted to cement that number 10 jersey. You're looking around, a lot of teams, England have got a load of 10s coming through the system. You know, Sheedy at Wales is stepping up. Even Scotland, we've got a few to choose from. Obviously, Italy as well. Let's not talk about them. And France, well, take your pick. You've got 3 world-class 10s. Still a problem with Ireland, this 10 position, do you think? Or do you think it's a fact that for the external thing, we're talking about Sexton, he's not quite up to it, but he's still got a good year, couple of years left in him. And then at that point, you know, Billy needs to step up. 3 Burns, Harry and Ross, Byrne, and Burns in Billy Burns. Too many Burns, skid marks.
Yeah, there's been this talk about the succession plan, you know, for Ireland over the Autumn Nations Cup and the start of the Six Nations. Again, it was because Johnny Sexton wasn't finishing games. He was constantly getting injured. And then all of a sudden, Jim, he's played 80 minutes in the last 2 games. He's played very well. He's directed his team around and marshaled his team around brilliantly. And as a captain, that's exactly what you want. And then all of a sudden, Joey Carberry comes back and gets a man of the match performance for Munster at the weekend. And the succession plan has been quickly forgotten about. But, you know, Joey Carberry was out for 15 months or something, 16 months with that ankle injury.
How is he now? I mean, is he all right? Because there was talk of him not getting back.
Yeah, like there's going to be talk about anybody, Jim, that's been out for that long of a period of time and not really looking like he's going to get back. And then all of a sudden there was a few pictures of him training with the senior squad. And then boom, he was on the bench for a game, 10 days later, 2 weeks later. So he must be feeling pretty good. His performance there last weekend for Munster was exceptional. And yeah, he certainly will come back in and be pushing Johnny hard. Is there anybody there in that succession plan, Harry Byrne, Ross Byrne, or Billy Burns, that's of the same level as Johnny Sexton? An international level, no. A Pro 14 level, yes. And, you know, it's about making that jump up and making that step. And, you know, will the guys get opportunity? I'm not sure they will get opportunity, Jim, coming up to a Rugby World Cup. You know, Johnny is the captain of Ireland. He'll be wanting to play all those games. So where do you kind of go, well, hold on a second, if you get injured in the first game or have another HIA or tweak your hamstring, like we've got to have a replacement here that has played 10 games before the Rugby World Cup. So, you know, that's a conundrum that Andy Farrell's got to try and sort out and get his head around. But Joey Carberry's back. That's a big plus for Ireland.
Who do you think? Who do you think will be the next 10 for the next 5-10 years after Sexton? Which would the World Cup will be? I mean, you know, we want him to go on forever. We'd love to. We'd love Dan Carter to go on forever. You know, Johnny Wilkinson, the greats, to have done it in that number 10 jersey. Who do you think is going to be next?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. And that's the honest answer, because there hasn't been anybody that's went, it's me. Like, you talk about CJ Stander and you go, well, who's next to come in and fill these CJ Standers? Jack Conan, Keelan Doris, Max Deegan, you know, right, okay. Well, who's coming in the second row? You have James Ryan, Ian Henderson, Ryan Baird, he's the next. You know, who's coming in at scrum half? Casey. You can list out every single position, but when it comes to the out half, I'm just not sure, Jim. And, you know, Joey Carberry needs a run of games to prove his fitness, and we'll see how they go. But I think with Billy Burns, who I admire an awful lot, and he seems like a really good bloke, at Pro 14 level, he's been brilliant, unbelievable. At Heineken Cup level, he's been good. But in the really big games in the Heineken Cup, he's been average. And then in the Inter-Pros, when the level has went up again against Leinster, specifically Leinster the last couple of times, he's been probably poor to average. And then in the international game against Wales in the opener, he didn't play particularly well. So as the level gets higher and higher, you know, his performance seems to drop off a little bit. And by God, I hope he proves me wrong going forward, that, you know, he can compete at that level. But you know, that's what we need to see from Andy Farrell, is other lads get an opportunity to see if they can make that next step.
No, hopefully. Well, you know, from an emotional point of view, I'd love to see, personal point of view, I'd love to see Billy.
Yeah, definitely.
Fill that 10 jersey. He needs a bit of confidence, I think. That's the kind of player that he is. Obviously left Gloucester on bad terms, and he's been brilliant for Ulster. So who knows? Watch this space. It's an interesting one when it comes to Ireland in that position. Another position that's been spoken about after the weekend, and I didn't really know this just from what I've read, and it's as I said, this statement, James Lowe will be on the Lions tour. He misses the tackle on Hugh Jones from almost the halfway line. How's James Lowe fitted into that winger position? I mean, he's brilliant. They've been waiting for him to get his opportunity. I thought Keith Earls was wicked at the weekend, like as in one of the best players on the pitch, like he is most weeks. But James Lowe is a bit different, but there's question marks around his defence. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there's been question marks around his defence, Jacob Stockdale's defence, two unbelievably good attacking players. But when it comes to defensive duties, they seem to be, falling off a few tackles, making a few mistakes. And, if that was the All Blacks or if that was South Africa and you made that missed tackle, that could be the difference between the two sides of winning the games. Thankfully for Ireland at the weekend, it wasn't. But I think James Lowe, you and I have watched him an awful lot over the last couple of seasons for Leinster, and what a powerhouse and he is with the ball in hand. I think it was his first carry of the game where he just shoved Ali Price out of the way down the short part on the open side and made 20 yards, got an offload away to Johnny Sexton, and that's what he is good at. Personally, I don't think he'll go on a Lions tour. I don't think he will. When you look at Reece Ahmed, Johnny May, Stockdale coming back in there, Josh Adams, Anthony Watson. I think all those players are ahead of him. So for me, yes, he does offer something a little bit different in attack. But then against South Africa, the whole game is on physicality. And if you don't win those collisions on both sides of the ball, then I think that would be a negative. So yeah, I think he's a class act with ball in hand, but he's shown some vulnerabilities in defence. But just on England, and I was asked yesterday morning, Tim, I was doing a thing about potential Lions team for the summer, and who would I select for the Lions team? I was like, right, well, I'm not going to just select this team on the last couple of weeks. As you rightly said there, England won the last Six Nations, won the Autumn Nations Cup. They've been bloody brilliant. World Cup finalists. I'm like, well, number one, okay, maybe Rory Sutherland or somebody there, Joe Marler, somebody like that could even come in and surprise a lot of people. Okay, hooker, I'm going to go Jimmy George. Well, Jimmy George didn't start at the weekend. He's been the best hooker in the world for the last 4 years, pretty consistently. He hasn't been playing that much rugby over the last 6 weeks. But people will look at that and go, he's been playing crap. He's been playing rubbish. Well, you wouldn't select him. He wouldn't even go on the tour. Rob Herring's ahead of him. All the other hookers are ahead of him. But hold on a second. It's about the consistency that there's been shown over the last couple of years. And that's what I think, Warren Gatland will have a look at as well getting into this Lions tour. And I had other players, Atoji, Sam Underhill, who hasn't even featured in this Six Nations. He's on my Lions team to get in there as well. And a couple of others.